Hello, genealogists. It's Craig with Just Genealogy. Today I want to talk about a series of records, an index, that is very much underused by everybody, largely because they may not understand what it actually is. It's on Ancestry, and let me take you through it with sort of a case study. Not quite, but close enough. So here we have a picture of William A. Knilans, First Lieutenant, Company I, 13th Wisconsin. For years, I knew of this picture, but I had not seen writing on it before, and I actually thought it was somebody else. So I was very pleased to find this picture with William A. Knilans on it. And he looks like a Knilans, so I have faith. In fact, I had pictures of two men in the same unit, and I'm related to both of them. This person is my great-great-uncle, and the other person is my great-uncle, and they were in the same unit. One was a captain. His name was Newton Hawes Kingman, and the other one was William A. Knilans, and he was a lieutenant, first lieutenant in the company. Actually, my great-great-grandfather was a corporal in the company. But that's another embarrassing story that I'll share with you at some later date. So let's talk about William A. Knilans and the Record and Pension Office. And part of the reason why I'm talking about this today is because soon we'll start going to the archives again. And this set of records, that's the only way you can get to it, is by going to the archives. But it's always nice to have a research plan to walk into the archives with. So I'm going to share with you what's going to be part of my next research plan when I go to the National Archives. So let's talk about William A. Knilans a little bit. He enlisted in 23rd of November 1861, started out as a sergeant in Company I, 13th Wisconsin Infantry, and by 62 he was a second lieutenant. And then by 65, he is a first lieutenant. And then later, he becomes a captain. He becomes the captain of Company G, 13th Wisconsin. So, first lieutenant, second lieutenant, Company I. Then he transfers to Company G as their captain. And he musters out in 1865 in San Antonio, Texas. He lives in Richmond, Wisconsin, which is in Walworth County, Wisconsin. So that's enough information. The first thing that I always do with a Civil War person is look at them in the 1860 census. So you will find him in Walworth County in the 1860 census. So if we go to the card catalog on Ancestry, and we just type in Record Pension Office in the title, the only thing that will show up will be the index to the General Correspondence of the Record and Pension Office, 1889 to 1904. Now you might wonder why we would be interested in records from 1889 to 1904 for Civil War service. Well, the issue is that the Record and Pension Office during this period of time is collecting information about people. They're the ones collecting the medical information. They're the ones compiling the military service records under the direction of Fred Ainsworth, who eventually will become a brigadier. I've talked about Fred before. He's one of my favorite people in the world. But anyway, they created an index. And you'll notice that this is a typical browse only kind of thing, which means that if you were to plug William A. Knilans' name into the search box for a general search, he would not appear in this record group because this record group is browsable. This is a problem with Ancestry. This is why you always look at things through the card catalog and look at the specific series of records that you want to look for. Now, these records originally were on M686, which is a microfilm roll publication from the National Archives. So my recommendation is that you should go to archives.gov and go into the microfilm catalog and download a copy of the descriptive pamphlet for M686 and just give it a read. And that will give you an idea about what the Record and Pension Office was all about. It eventually will become part of the Adjutant General's office, and Ainsworth eventually become Adjutant General, and eventually he'll be invited to leave the service or be court-martialed just before World War I. That said, whenever you're dealing with microfilm on Ancestry, there is a target at the beginning of the roll, and that target will also have as part of it the descriptive pamphlet. So you could also look at the descriptive pamphlet this way, but remember that this is a microfilm copy of the descriptive pamphlet, and it's ugly. And if you download it from archives.gov, it will be much crisper and cleaner. These, I think, are about 385 rolls of microfilm, so it's not a small collection. I'm only going to look at one card, and that is for W.A. Knilans, 2nd Lieutenant, Company is not given, 13th Wisconsin Infantry. So this tells me that there is a file in the National Archives apart from his compiled military service record. Now I say apart because this is not in his compiled military service record. Sometimes you will see Record and Pension Office numbers in compiled military service records. That's what the red ink is. And the Record and Pension Office material might very well be in the compiled military service record. I know in the case of my own great-grandfather in an Illinois regiment, the information that would normally be found in the Record and Pension Office was interfiled and was put in as compiled military service record. So when I go to the National Archives next, I am going to be requesting Record and Pension Office file 576458 and see what it has to say. It may say nothing, but if you've got a guy who deserted and yet still has a pension, you definitely want to go here. If you've got a guy that got a Medal of Honor, it seems a little later than everybody else, you definitely want to go here. If you've got a guy who died in the war, you definitely want to go here because his mother may have written a letter to the Record and Pension Office, and you just don't know it because it's not in the pension. So we have compiled military service records, we have pension records, and then we have the Record and Pension Office files. So 3 different records that you could be looking at. One day I'll talk about the pension ledgers, but probably not until I get to the archives and shoot some pictures. So let's talk about the fun of William A. Knilans. William A. Knilans went to Ireland, to County Tyrone, sometime in the 1880s, 1890s to settle an estate. We're told by his obituary. This is the family he belongs to. Daniel Knilans and Sarah Allen Knilans. Daniel was from County Tyrone and Sarah was from County Sligo. And they came over in the 1840s. Some of these individuals were born in Ireland. These siblings, Robert and William James, and were all born in Ireland, I know off the top of my head. But one of the interesting things here is, for William A. Knilans, is that he seems to have 2 Find a Grave entries. One for William A. Knilans, born 22 November 1833 in Ireland, which is, so far as I know, true. Died 25 June 1909, age 75. That's what I've come to believe, in Beloit, Rock County, Wisconsin. And according to this, he's buried in Richmond Cemetery in Walworth County, Wisconsin. But there's no tombstone. There's just this picture. Then if you go to Oakwood Cemetery, which is also, which is in Beloit, which is where he died, in Rock County, Wisconsin, there is a stone for William A. Knilans, 1833 to 1909, same guy. CPT stands for captain, and our guy was a captain of Company G, 13th Wisconsin Infantry. But if you look at the tombstone and you misinterpret it, it says company or CO dot 113th Wisconsin. And that's what's actually in the find a grave entry. Captain Company 113th Wisconsin Infantry. There were not 113 infantry regiments from Wisconsin during the Civil War. So the proper interpretation of this, and if you look at the stone properly, you can see that it is an I rather than a 1. Notice it's a little taller. It should be Company I, 13th Wisconsin. I'm just saying. It's time to be picky. So what I want to press upon you today is it's possible for somebody to have 2 entries and find a grave. 1 could be a cenotaph. 2 could be a cenotaph. Don't forget, we still don't have the other. We don't know what is actually in Richmond Cemetery. So the next time I'm in Walworth County, I will visit the Richmond Cemetery again. And I will visit the Oakwood Cemetery, which I don't think I've been to before. I have actually been to several cemeteries in that area, thanks to a cousin. And it will have to be scoped out one way or the other. But the focus today was not necessarily on William A. Knilans, but on the Record and Pension Office Index found in Ancestry. It is alphabetical, so you just need to browse by last name. So you just need to browse it by last name. It doesn't take very long. I use a process of halves. In other words, if what I'm looking for is I half it, and then I half it, and then I half it, until I get close to the right spot, and then I just scroll it. So if there are 7,000 images, I'm going to go look at image 3,500 to see what it looks like and determine whether I need to go less than 3,500 or more than 3,500. If it's close, I may not half it. I may only go a quarter away. So 3,500, I may go to 3,000 because I believe it's between 3,000 and 3,500. If it's not, if it's less than 3,000, then I'll go down to 2,500. If I'm close. If I'm not close, I'm just going to half it. And so it took probably 8 passes before I was actually able to find William. Now, I was, as part of what I was doing today, was going to show you William A. Knilans' passport application for when he went to Ireland, according to his obituary. Because there is a William Allen Knilans who did go to Ireland, who lived in Wisconsin, Walworth County. But he left for Ireland. His passport was after 1909. So all these years, I've thought that this William A. Knilans was William Allen Knilans, when in fact they're not. So one day I'll figure out exactly how William Allen Knilans connects to my Knilans family. I know he does, because after all, he went to Ireland to settle the estate of, I think, George Knilans, but I'm not sure. William A. Knilans is reported to have gone to Ireland to settle the estate of his aunt. And I haven't actually tracked down who his aunt was at this point. But that project will provide another video at some day. So, this has been Craig with Just Genealogy. And I have been talking about my great-great-uncle, William A. Knilans, who served first as a sergeant, then as a second lieutenant, then as a first lieutenant in the Company I, 13th Wisconsin Infantry. And if it eventually will become a captain of Company G of the 13th Wisconsin Infantry near the end of the war. And he has a file in the National Archives that's identified by a Record and Pension Office Index that is found on Ancestry. I invite you to go and look at those indexes. They largely relate to the Civil War, but there are some Revolutionary War, very few. There are some Mexican War, very few. Most of them are Civil War. There probably are Spanish-American War and Philippine insurrection there also, but I've never touched one of those. So this has been Craig with Just Genealogy, and it's another day gone by. See you tomorrow.